Deputy Noel Grealish, please.
Minister, I was elected to Galway County Council in June 1999, and at my very first meeting, one of the first items on the agenda was the proposed Galway City Outer Bypass. The initial plan for the bypass was published in October 1999 with a projected cost at that time of £103.8 million, or approximately €130 million. The intended route of the bypass at the time entailed the demolition of 8 houses. The following year saw huge legal challenges over the project, and despite An Bord Pleanála part approving the project, it ended up going to the European Court of Justice, and after the court's ruling in April 2013 it was officially abandoned. The projected cost when it was finally abandoned was approximately €444 million. Nearly 3.5 times its original projected cost. Minister, in late 2013, consultants were appointed to design what is now called the N6 Galway City Ring Road. In 2015, the emerging preferred route was published, consisting of 12 kilometres of dual carriageway, 6 kilometres of single carriageway, a bridge over the River Carrob, a viaduct and 2 tunnels, one of which will run under part of the Galway racecourse. The impact of this new proposed road on families, businesses and farmers is significantly greater than the original route. It will involve the demolition of 44 family homes, with 10 more to be acquired. A number of industrial and commercial properties are to be either acquired or demolished. More than 320 non-agricultural properties will also be subject to partial land acquisitions, including parts of gardens and driveways, but mostly roadside strips outside boundary walls. There will be 219 hectares of farmland from 195 land parcels to be acquired. The proposed cost of this project has now increased to approximately €650 million. But I firmly believe, Minister, that the cost of this project, if it gets the go-ahead, will be in excess of €1 billion. More than €35 million has been spent on this project since 1999, €14.7 million on the initial Galway City Outer Bypass and approximately €20 million on the current project. As I previously stated, Minister, Arab were appointed in 2013. The current proposal emerged in 2015 and was submitted to An Bord Pleanála in October 2018, almost 3 years ago. The oral hearing for this road took place in 2020, and the decision of this project has already been deferred from April of this year to June 25th. But this date is not written in stone. Minister, we're 22 years into this project with millions spent and still no road. Minister, my question to you is your government 100% committed to provide the funding for this project if it gets the go-ahead from An Bord Pleanála?
Thank you very much. Deputy Grealish, Minister Ryan.
Deputy Grealish, you have a good, clear understanding of the history of transport in Galway. I do remember at the time myself, back in the late 90s, an engineer looking at the city and saying we're going to have a real problem in Galway unless we change our ways, that the building of all the the emphasis on road networks and roundabouts was going to be going to gridlock. That person argued at the time, which has subsequently turned out to be true. Galway's transport system is not working. It's a city that is the least functional, I would argue, in transport terms, and it needs radical change, and it needs a whole range of different solutions. You're right as well in terms of looking at the history, going back to the earlier discussions, how long it takes for us to build anything in this country, and that Galway Road is as good an example as any. We have to wait for the hearing from the findings from the An Bord Pleanála hearing. My understanding is that they may issue their decision towards the end of June is the expected time. It could be later in the order of these things, and we will have to await that. And even then, that there's a series of further decision points in any large public transport, in any large transport project like this, before it actually gets the go-ahead. You have to still go through the public procurement process, the government process in terms of assessing projects, including a business case being presented, and then a tendering stage where you would find out what the actual cost is. I agree with you that the likely final cost is likely to be much higher than anything that has been speculated to date. If we look at the cost of other road projects which we're commissioning at this time, they tend to be significantly higher than what would have been originally estimated. TII are trying to avoid that eventuality by setting pricing estimates in place that take into account all eventualities, but it's still something where we're likely to see higher cost. The issue of the householders on the proposed route is a critical issue, and you're right, and I know you've spoken to me on several occasions about the very difficult situation they find themselves in, unable to sell their house, not knowing what's happened. I'm afraid they will have to await the An Bord Pleanála hearing, because it could be that An Bord Pleanála might set conditions which change the route or change the aspect of the project which might change their circumstances. But they are people who've been a long time caught in this process, and as I said, the decision can't come quickly enough for them. What I've agreed with our government colleagues is we have to look at the whole range of different transport projects in Galway, not just focus on one project as if one project in its own can solve the problems. We do need huge investment in active travel, in my mind, in Galway, which could happen immediately, needs to happen immediately to address the problems in the city. We need bus connects for Galway to be built out. It has started. The routes through sensitive areas like across the Salmon Weir Bridge, Cross Eyre Square are now in progress. It's vital that they proceed. No matter what we do on the road, we're going to need that infrastructure. We're going to need to upgrade the rail line from Athenry to Cant Station. You'll have heard me speak about that. The benefit it will bring not just for Athenry, but for Arranmore and potentially new areas, Ardron and so on in the city which need to develop. The road can only be considered in that wider context. That's how it was included in the Galway Metropolitan Area Strategy. That's what I'll follow as our guide in terms of any future government decisions we make.
Thank you very much. Deputy Grealish.
Thank you, Minister. As I stated earlier, there are 54 house owners about to lose their homes, and many more landowners and farmers directly affected by this project. The homeowners find themselves stuck in limbo, whereby they cannot sell their houses. They are downscaled because nobody will buy them. They cannot build new houses because technically they still have a home. They don't want to spend any significant money renovating or refurbishing because they don't know how long more will they be living there. Minister, they could be stuck in this limbo for years, just as the 8 original house owners on the original route were before it was finally abandoned 14 years after it was originally proposed. Minister, these house owners deserve certainty and clarity. So my question is, will your government come up with a plan to buy these houses without delay if An Bord Pleanála gives the project the go-ahead, and regardless of any legal or judicial challenges that might be taken, which could take and could last several years? So Minister, please give some sort of hope to these house owners if the board do grant this project. Don't leave it hanging for years and years as it goes through the whole process.
Thank you very much, Deputy Grealish. Minister,
conclude.
Deputy, my understanding, Galway County Council has already set up an advanced negotiation strategy in relation to the road, and all affected householders are invited to participate. And absolutely, subject to the decision for approval, I would be encouraging Galway Council, and we'll be doing everything we can to assist those householders who have been caught. Can I make one final point, though? And this, I suppose, I'm reflecting, go back to what I was saying earlier, and I don't mean to be too critical about Galway, but it's the special, beautiful nature of the city is something we need to think about. I remember at a very good conference in NUIG in recent years when we were looking at the planning and transport systems in Galway, and someone said if only we could go back to that 99 period now and build more of Galway in Galway. In other words, we actually, the very kind of unique characteristic of the city, beside its own bay, with really good urban character, streets that are really attractive to walk on. That's what we need to build more of in Galway, is places where it's a really spectacular place to live. 15-minute city, Galway, where all services are within close walking and cycling distance. Those 54 householders deserve that, and they have to get out of their particular difficult circumstances. But every householder in Galway deserves us to actually look at how do we create a planning framework that makes Galway special, and includes in that solve the transport problems that really do beset the city.
Okay, thank you all. Members, that concludes Leaders' Questions for today.